Everybody, you made it back from midterm week. Congratulations, we've got that big assignment out of the way. I'll be grading those starting immediately, but give me a couple of days with them because they're longer assignments and I'm going to spend a little bit more time with them. But I will get those posted as soon as possible and let you know when those grades are available. One thing to keep in mind for in the upcoming weeks is the last day to resign with a grade of a W or withdrawal is Friday, October the 23rd. And since that's coming up next week, I want to make sure that you're aware of the options that you have there. I am perfectly fine to keep working with you, even if you're behind, to try to catch up on some stuff. You're not too far behind, I don't think. But sometimes it's worth thinking at this point, do I have enough focus or energy or time to dedicate to catching up on a bunch of missed work? Well, once we get through this withdrawal date, that's really the last option you have for it. Whatever grade goes forward from there stays in. So I want to offer that up to you or remind you of that so that you can be aware of what's going on and so that you can make a decision. If you have questions or anything like that, you're welcome to contact me. But in terms of how it impacts you, your academic status, and other things, that'd be a really good question to ask your advisor. So I want to put that out there to you as an option for you to keep in mind. So this week we're moving out of the medieval period, which is where we've spent the entire semester to this point. And makes sense. It's a long period. It covers Old English and Middle English up until the Renaissance, and that's where we're starting with now from this section forward. So I'm particularly passionate about this. This is where all my research is, or was when I was doing a lot more research in the era of Shakespeare and the era of when English really grew. The English world grew into its own in terms of creating art. That doesn't mean that there wasn't art ahead of time, but the amount of material that is available to us explodes during the Renaissance, mainly for a few reasons. One, the influence of the continental Renaissance in Italy and France comes over, but also this is when the printing press became available. And all of these works that were previously kind of tightly held or distributed in manuscript form could be mass produced and sent other places. That's one of the reasons why so many of the great movements, including the Reformation movements across Europe, the Church Reformation movements, were brought on by the printing press. And so not saying again that there wasn't art or things of beauty beforehand. If there weren't, we wouldn't study what we did. But the number of materials available to us explodes during this time period. And that's what's really exciting to me. In addition, you really have the growth of the theater as an important cultural icon, where not only did you have these great plays coming forward, but they became the entertainment capitals and also the place for a lot of nested cultural critique, which we'll talk about here in the coming weeks, especially as we read Shakespeare's plays and Marlowe's Dr. Faustus. But before we do that, we're going to focus in particular on an author named Sir Philip Sidney. And I think he's such an important figure, not just in the Renaissance, but also in the English literary world in general. And we're going to look this week at one of his great works called The Defense of Poesy, which is poesy defined not as like poetry, like rhyming words or even meter and things like that, but any sort of work of fiction. So take a look at the lecture video that I'm going to post, as well as the reading notes for some background on that particular work and how what Sidney says there, I think, encapsulates a lot of what fiction was doing beforehand, and it gives some direction for going forward. So one thing to keep in mind from now through the end of the semester is we're going to engage with this idea of not just what fiction does, but what fiction is supposed to do. What are these authors supposed to be doing with the opportunity that they have as writers? And I think Sidney lays that out in some pretty amazing ways. One thing you might appreciate is this text is a lot closer to modern English than anything we've read thus far. So I can imagine that most folks are like, good, because while Chaucer might be wonderful to read, he's difficult to follow in the Middle English. Well, Sidney's really close to modern English. There's some variations in words, but you'll be able to pick up on those. Also, this text is in prose, which means it's in paragraph form. So you'll be able to read it as though you're reading a prose text and understanding it, our modern prose text, and understanding it in that way. It's a good little breather before we jump into the poetry of Sidney and compare it with Shakespeare as we look at the courtly love sonnets in Sidney's Astrophil and Stella and Shakespeare sonnets next week. But for this week, focusing just on the defense of poesy. There's also that large section of the textbook that talks about what's going on in the Renaissance. Really need to try to take a look at that because it gives you some of the historical background of what's going on, not just in the literary world, but in the cultural world, which is an extremely tumultuous time where you have reformations and you have, as I mentioned before, the printing press, the growth of so many people as writers. You have a revolution that sets up a democracy that then is coming back around to a monarchy, all within a few decades. So it's an amazing and fascinating time. I think you'll enjoy it. So we're back to the discussion board this week. So like normal, you would post there on Friday night, answer one of the 3 questions about Sidney's defense of poetry there, and then you comment on another classmate's post by Saturday, and then we'll keep moving forward. I do hope that as we move into the second half of the semester that a lot of these processes have become second nature to you because it's the same thing every week. So if that's not the case, just try to find that place where you can get into a rhythm of, I'm going to spend this much time today or throughout the week with these assignments, with these texts. They're not going to get any shorter necessarily, but I think that you'll find them extremely engaging. So good luck, and please let me know if you have any questions or concerns or if there's anything I can do for you. Thank you.